Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Myrtis, the founding director of Galerie Myrtis. And I'd also like to introduce you to Alex, my husband, who's a lawyer, and to Allie, who's my intern this summer, and we're enjoying having her. This afternoon, we are going to be talking about abstraction. The title of the exhibition is Abstraction, the Syncopation of Light, Color, and Form. And if you've had an opportunity to look at the work, you know that every piece in here exemplifies that. The work is absolutely beautiful. And what we also hope to do is to demystify the belief by some, not all, and none of you here, that abstraction is just a bunch of squiggly lines with no foundation, and it just doesn't make any sense. But we know that all of you are here because you love the work, and so we're going to explore what motivates these artists to create in these non-representational forms, and how beautifully they convey their emotions, their belief, and express their imagination, their intuitions through the work. One other announcement. This event is part of the second Saturday. And what happens on the second Saturday is that various venues within the Station North's Arts and Entertainment District are hosting different events. And if you pick up one of these cards, and Allie can assist you with that, if you get 3 dots on your card by visiting 3 venues, you'll get a free beer at one of the venues. If you receive 4 or more dots, then you receive a free pizza at Joe Squares, which is some of the best pizza in town. So before the afternoon ends, make sure that you see Allie and at least get your Galerie Myrtis dot. So I'm going to start by reading a brief introduction of each artist. One of our artists is stuck in traffic, it's Scott, and he's traveling down from New York. So we hope that he'll be able to join us soon. And we want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon. So I'm going to begin by introducing David Carlson. David is an artist, teacher, and community activist. As an artist and abstract painter, his works are considered, in the words of Kristen Coleman, a painter's painter. Kristen is, for those of you who don't know, Kristen is the curator of contemporary art at the Baltimore Museum of Art. He has participated in artists' exchanges with Central Asia, West Africa, North Africa, and Europe. And he has had 18 solo exhibitions and participated in numerous group exhibitions since 1986. And David shares this with many of the artists, being that their works are in several public and private collections. He earned his MFA from the University of Massachusetts in Amherst and is a professor at Marymount University. Calvin Coleman, the next artist, is an artist and teacher. He's a self-taught artist who incorporates abstract expressionism and Fordism, building upon the canvas with an assemblage of heavy-body acrylic paint, a variety of textiles and other mediums to embellish his uninhibited style of painting. In Art Matters, January '07, art critic Wanda Wells stated, "Calvin's work is endowed with an aura of originality and poetic whimsy. He has had over 20 solo exhibitions and participated in numerous group exhibitions across the United States and in Paris. His works are in numerous public and private collections. He's received several commissions. And amongst the exhibitions and where his work is featured is the Embassy of Rome in Italy. He's also done commissions for Verizon Wireless, permanent collections, public, Atlanta, Housing and Urban Development, Lincoln University, Drexel University, and many others. The list just goes on. Calvin is currently teaching at the Paul Public Charter School in DC, and he earned his bachelor's degree from Lincoln University in early childhood education. Elsa Gebreyesus is an artist activist. She lived in Ethiopia, Kenya, and the United States before traveling to Canada, Ontario, where she received her BA from Brock University. After won its independence from Ethiopia. She lived there for 5 years, working as a project officer with indigenous women's organizations. After leaving Eritrea, she came to the U.S., where she began pursuing her career and lifelong passion for art. She continues to learn from artists she admires and has been greatly influenced by modernist painters from both Africa and the West. Michael Gross is a lawyer by profession. He studied art history in college. In an interview with Helen Frederick, the co-curator for his solo exhibition, Monochromatics, held in 2008 at the Papco Gallery in Washington, D.C., Michael was asked what or who influenced him as an artist. He stated his parents were his greatest influence. His mother, who was an artist all of her life, studied at the Art Institute of Chicago, where I believe she received her master's degree.
She received a master's degree from the Illinois Institute of Technology, Design School of Design.
Thank you. And, well, at the Art Institute, you and your mother took art classes together.
We did.
His father, an advertising executive, took him to his office on the weekend, and he would set up a drafting table and provide Michael with crayons and paper, where he became quite proficient at drawing Woody Woodpecker and Donald Duck. William Christenberry, or Bill, who served as the curator for Monochromatics exhibit, described Michael as a landscape artist, getting his source from both real life and his inner soul. So we really want to get into Michael's inner soul today and figure out what that really means. He has exhibited in Baltimore, Chicago, North Carolina, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and Japan. Michael Scott Johnson, Scott as we call him, is not here to provide his introduction, is an educator and sculptor. Scott's education as a sculptor began in Bulawayo, Zimbabwe. While there, he studied traditional and contemporary stone sculpting under the tutelage of local artists who occupied the endless alleyways of the city. Johnson's greatest opportunity came when he was invited to apprentice from 1996 to 99 under master sculptor, national hero, and elder statesman of Zimbabwe, stone sculptor Nicholas Mukumuranwa. Under Mukumuranwa, Johnson explored more than just the techniques of sculpting. It became a period of cultural rediscovery. In the foreword for his book, Shadow Matter, The Rhythm of Structure, independent sculptor Myrtis writes, Johnson creates his own iconography as he transforms the ancient media of stone into profound imagery. Through his biomorphic shapes and intricate patterns of undulating movements, there exists, within the complexity of his compositions, a simplicity where spirituality is found. Johnson has exhibited in galleries across the United States, in Zimbabwe, at Harvard and Columbia University. His works can be found in the permanent collection of the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture and Hampton University. He is a recipient of the Victor Lowenfeld Sculpture Prize bestowed upon him by Harvard University for his work, The Tao of Physics. He received his bachelor's degree in liberal arts from Western Michigan University in Kalamazoo. Jeffrey Kent is an artist and founder of Sub-Basement Artist Studios, established in 2003. It is a 12,000 square foot underground artist studio and gallery space located in downtown Baltimore. It was voted Best Gallery by City Paper in 2005. He was awarded Best Visual Artist by Baltimore City Paper in 2008 and featured in Baltimore's 2008 Top 10 Artists listed by the Examiner. Kent received his master's in fine art from the prestigious Hofburger School of Painting at the Maryland Institute College of Art in 2010. The artistic vision of Kent is an important contribution to his continuous spectrum of urban cultural expression and identity. Since '92, Jeffrey has held 8 solo exhibitions and participated in numerous group exhibitions in Chicago, various galleries in Baltimore and in Washington, D.C. His work was featured at the Reginald Lewis Museum in 2005, and he participated in 2008 in the Stars and Stripes Pride or Despair exhibition, which originated at Galerie Myrtis and then traveled on to Washington, D.C. Jeffrey is currently participating in 2 exhibitions here and also at Expansion, which opens today at the College of Notre Dame's Romley's Gallery. And in September, he is participating in the 9/11 Arts Project and will be featured in 10 Years After 9/11, which is being curated by Helen Frederick at the Pepco Gallery in Washington, D.C. So those are our artists. And I provided each artist with questions. And so the format this afternoon is I'm going to pose the questions, allow them to just chime in at whatever point they would like, and then we'll follow that questions. I always follow the questions we do Q&A. So my first question to the panel of artists is, what inspired the series featured in this exhibition? And I'll start with you.
Oh, thank you.
You're the lawyer. You go first.
Oh, right. I won't speak about law today, and I don't practice law anymore, so I shouldn't be talking about law anyway. I think that the work that's here all relate to an event that occurred about now 5-6 years ago, and it was where I was actually working on the painting, which is in the back space, toward Black No. 1. It turned out to be the title, which I did afterwards. And I was looking carefully at it, and I don't know if it'll come up here, and if you all haven't seen it, take a look afterwards. Anyway, it's a painting, and I've been doing some paintings in that style for several years, especially my non-objective work. And I began to look at the areas where there were black hunks of area, and I noticed that what I had actually done was use a number of different blacks and grays, and I had color underneath the black. And I noticed there was a lot of activity there, and I thought, I need to try to make a painting that's essentially all black, but has a great deal of subtlety of color underneath and exposed color, and then gray and various shades of black. So this painting here is part of that series. And it's a rather large painting, as you can see. I made several of those, and I've made now a total of 18 paintings, which are called Vision in Black, but they're numbered. And in addition to doing them in black, I began to realize that I should try and see whether I could make what I thought was happening in the black paintings happen in a variety of colors. So if you see right here, there's a red painting, that's mine too. And I've made them in blue, I've made it in blue and yellow, and a whole variety of brown, white, gray paintings. And in addition to that, I make prints, and I've made prints in the various colors too, and black, and white, and gray. So I guess that's really why, how that started. And I think I'm getting maybe to the end of this phase. I think I've got some ideas I have to work on that I'm really interested in, and yet I feel very pleased that I was able to put together all of those paintings and prints and drawings that had a real clear focus.
Just to piggyback on what you were saying, for me, I'm like, I also work in series, or exploring ideas and exploring a number of paintings in that particular idea or theme. But for this particular show, the pieces I created were really specific to the theme that Myrtis, tasked the artists. I mean, not so much tasks, but once I knew what the theme of the work, the show was going to be, I created all the pieces really in mind with the idea of, the syncopation of light, color, and form, and within my own visual language. There are other pieces and series that I work in, but I wanted to really work for within that vein, within that scope, and so created these pieces in the show specifically with that theme in mind.
Well, my work usually, I'm more known for work that's political and that explores language, the use of words, but I also paint abstract paintings. I've painted many abstract paintings over time. But one example of a artist-gallery relationship, this would be a great example of this series of paintings that I've done that are in this exhibit. One day while visiting here with Myrtis and Alex pulled me aside. I was having a meeting about a big project we're working on together for one of my other series. I also work in series. And Alex asked me if I've heard of Henrietta Lacks. And I had heard the name before, but I couldn't recall where or why. And he said, man, you gotta check out this book. It's amazing. I think your work and the way you work really relates. And so I dug in, started doing some research into the life of Henrietta Lacks and her immortal selves. And I thought how it's juxtaposed to the life of an artist. Perfect example is Van Gogh, the easiest example, where this artist lived this life of pain, and he died with very little money, and his paintings are now worth gazillions of dollars. And this is the same life that Henrietta Lacks lived. Her cells are, to this day, there are more of her cells than any cells of any sort. And they're used for all sorts of research, and there's no limit to the amount of money that's been made from her cells, whereas she obviously got nothing from it because they were taken after she died, and her families never got anything. And I thought that was interesting in the way that, for me, one of the romantic feelings I have about being an artist is that immortality, that when I'm gone, my work will outlive me. And that's really what inspires these paintings that I have selected to do for this exhibit.
I've got pieces up here. There's 5 paintings in this space, and 3 small ones in another one. They come from different time zones. These are 2010. There's a piece from 2006 and 2003 from 2008. Kind of an umbrella term, I would say, Taoist geometry. And I've been working abstract for a good while now. I started out as a figurative artist, but I kind of hit the wall with that. I knew what things were going to do. And then so I kept evolving. I started getting into finer energies and ideas about things philosophically. And then this work is, it keeps changing all the time. And it keeps getting into nuances and energy and time and space. And as an artist, I'm very influenced by just life in general. And I'll ask questions and post them on my walls in my studio. And one of them is, what is the nature of reality? Which might seem like a silly question in an abstract show. But I really look at life as very ephemeral and always changing. So there's objects, and I think that people look at reality as if it's an object. I look at abstraction as a reality. So these paintings, you know, they're a process. And they're very intuitive, and I start with something, and I say, what happens if I do this? And for every action, there's a reaction. And so I keep working these paintings until they reach some kind of conclusion.
I too work on the series, and the paintings that I have here today are from a series actually that derive from natural elements. And the two paintings that I have here, one of them is of a sun, and the other one is of trees and water. But one of my admirers, or an artist that I admire, is Myrtis. And he was an artist that simplified shapes and forms. And what I try to emulate a little is to take those natural elements of my work and make them as simple as possible, the form of them as simple as possible. So that's really it for me as far as, the style of work that I have here today.
Great. And the next question, and I'll start with you, Calvin. Describe your approach to achieving light, color, and form in your work.
Sure. I'm an artist that uses different resources and materials to paint. And what I use to formulate these paintings that are here is a palette knife and a fan brush and a spray bottle. And with those three materials or resources, I found that I was able to, with the palette knife, create a very dense pile of paint, should I say. And with my spray bottle of water, I was able to spray that pile of lump of paint on the canvas, and that water, and I allowed the water to choose its own path once it hit the paint and left the pile of paint, which what I'm trying to say is it allowed the paint to dilute a little bit, which caused it to be lighter than the dense paint that I use with the palette knife. And that's one right there, actually. And that's trees above water, and that's in the back space as well.
David?
State the question again, please.
Sure. Yes. Describe your approach to achieving light, color, and form in your work.
I start out with acrylic paint. It's a very fast drying paint, and I really have no idea whatsoever what I'm going to be doing. I might have some general kind of ideas about a place, or somewhere we'll be revisited, or some kind of idea. But by and large, I have no clue what these things are going to look like. And I'll just start putting paint down, and I'll build it up over time. And I work in series like everybody else. Usually I'm working on about 15 to 20 paintings at a time. It's like just a matter of process. And if I get bogged down on one, I can shift to another one. I can shift to another one. Sometimes I'm working on this one, and there's something going on in this painting that might go good in this painting. So, it's like a whole family that's kind of evolving as they go. At some point, I make a switch to oil paint and alkyd, and I respond to the different paint very differently. And when I make that change, then the paintings will shift gears. Sometimes I'll get out sandpaper or some kind of material and just start scraping the paintings down. A lot of creation is in destruction, and a lot of attachment turns into non-attachment. So as I'm working on the process of the painting, There'll be things that I fall in love with, which is always a problem. That means it's got to die. Because that's a sticking point. And so for the work to evolve and to change, I have to go through a whole series of falling in love and great pain of falling out of love and changing it. Sometimes I just close my eyes and go at it. But through that, I'll be introducing different colors and different shapes. And as I do that, the painting starts to suggest compositional elements or tensions in the space. And then I start playing around with opposition, opaque, transparency, fast, slow, solid, not solid, and all these things, until at some point the painting starts to really suggest ideas. So it's really a communication between me and the work. I start bouncing the ball off the wall, but the ball comes back at me. What do I do with that? And then I keep playing this game with the painting until they're finished.
So you can see where the squiggly lines concept just doesn't work. Creating real and beautiful and true abstraction is a very complicated process.
Well, my form in these paintings came from research in the HeLa cell phase contrast microscopic imagery, where there are these beautiful colors, shapes of her cells and how they are formed. And with the use, it's so funny when I listened to Calvin just a moment ago, the first artist I heard use the word spray bottle. Because that's like one of my major tools also. Is I use the water with acrylic as well. And I use this technique that I was blessed enough to work with Sam Gilliam to get this technique. I had to give him credit exactly for the luster in these paintings that I have here, which gave me an opportunity to create these layers, which allow light to go through the colors and separate the colors so that you can see between them. And that's one way I got the light part of the question. The form, light, color is just, I love color. It's no way to really get away from that. One of the things with these paintings, though, was important was the color, the use of the color green and the fluorescence, because that's one of the main things used in creating these images of cells. So I wanted to keep that as part of the series as well.
Awesome. Well, listening to David for me was it's a very similar process that I use. It's very much a conversation between myself and the canvas. We start off with a blank canvas, and in the beginning, it's about just putting paint, line work, just many different elements on the canvas itself, and let the process begin. It is a very much, I think, a lot of abstract painters can relate to that. The key for the work is the process itself. It's not, I personally have no idea how the painting is going to end. All I know is that moment that you start the conversation. Where it goes, where it leads is part of that process. But the beauty of it is I may use the same process, but our work is so different because we come to each material, color, element from different perspectives, from different vantage points, from a different stroke, and from a different perspective in general. And so even though the process may be similar, the work itself is very individual and very much reflective of the person who is creating the art themselves, which I think is just the beauty of abstract work for me, and why I enjoy other artists who create abstract work, because it's a real window into who they are. For these particular pieces, like I said, I really focused on working with the light, with form, how I create light, how I create form, and the use of color in the pieces. And I was even with just listening to everybody, there's so many different elements that we all use. And I love the idea of limiting myself to certain things. I'll limit a palette, a set of colors, only work with a particular set of colors. That way it limits you to really figuring out the puzzle, you know, with the limited resources. So I may choose a few colors and have to mix the colors to create darker colors, lighter colors, and depth, and use line work to create form. And in the beginning or in the middle of it all, it's quite chaotic and sometimes scary because you have no idea how this will make sense. But after using more paint and more back and forth, you simplify and you simplify and you simplify, and you create areas, in the painting itself to let your eye travel to lighter areas, to darker areas. And you go back and forth. Sometimes I'll work with the pieces in one direction and turn it upside down to force yourself to look at it in a different way, to make sure that there's balance, to make sure that there are quiet spaces, and then there's busier spaces, larger forms, smaller forms, and that conversation continues until you come to the end.
Yes, okay. I'm not sure what to say else. But I will say one thing. I heard about talking about water bottles. And frankly, in almost all my paintings, I will put the canvas on the floor, and then I will take watered down acrylic paint and get my hair blower out and use my hair blower to blow the paint, blow that around, and it makes the most wonderful wiggly lines that I think imaginable. And if you look at much of my work, somewhere in it there'll be some of those wiggly lines. Elsa, I guess you said it. Well, all of you were saying similar things, but Elsa, you hit a chord with me because I believe that this effort to make these black paintings and the red painting was a real attempt to limit myself to starting off with a goal. I knew it was going to be a black painting, but to get there, I had total freedom to get there. So what I would do with this painting, for example, and all just really all of them, I would put it on the wall. I'd take some yellow paint. I'd set out 6 or 7 different colors. I'd take wide brushes, narrow brushes, and I start painting, and I go for it. And I very much agree with the notion that it's a conversation, or it's a reaction. I don't know where I'm going, but in all of these, this whole last 5 years, I have made a commitment to myself that it will end up being a black painting, a red painting, and so on. So in that sense, I feel, well, I'm getting ready. I know it already because I've been making some prints that aren't like that, and I'm very excited to go back to, well, I will again have certain important goals in the way I use the materials. And so that helps me. And I don't think that's an inhibition because it's so, the object in my mind to this whole process is to be able to express what's inside of me, end up going at it as ferociously and determined, in a determined manner. And I'll work and work and work until I feel that all of that energy, all of that color, all of that, whatever it is in some state of an equilibrium, which makes me feel finished and comfortable. And I do that. I have to do that. It's like a way to deal with the fact that life is very chaotic and very scary, and who knows what's going to happen. And I find this as a way to comfort myself And having done it for a long time, I just love the process.
Elsa, I'll pose this question to you first. Why have you chosen abstraction to express your artistic voice?
You know, when I was working towards coming up the pieces for the show, I was looking around for ways to articulate this particular idea. And I've known that abstract art, for me, for many, many years, it's what I enjoy when I go and see art. It's what I enjoy when I create art. But I found a very telling quote from Georgia O'Keeffe. And it was something like, you know, abstraction is the most, is often the most definite form for the intangible thing in myself that I can clarify and read. And I thought that was such a beautiful statement. There are many aspects of our life, like you said, that are intangible, that are ethereal, that are that you cannot put your hands around, that you cannot touch, see, feel. Experiences, emotions, thoughts, listening to music, the experience of actually listening to music. I mean, it's just really so many experiences that we have in life that are intangible. And I think abstract art speaks to that, the closest, that it can translate those ideas the best, for me. And I find the translation is so open and so full of, it's just a wide open room, because each person has the way they interpret that abstraction in themselves, on canvas, on paper, through music, through poetry, through any of those expressive arts. It's just unlimited. It's just as unlimited as we are on the inside. So I really, that is why I love abstraction so much. It really is probably the most accurate way of expressing the intangible things in our lives. Michael?
Well, I agree with what you just said. That's the most important thing. But I will say that for me, I grew up, as you said, my mother was an artist, and she abstracted from reality, but she never ever was willing to delve into the notion of non-objectifying, where it really has to come from inside of you, and it's not a simplification. It's not what Cezanne, all the artists that we know that from the last 120 years, simplifying and doing all the various things that they did. So, as I grew up, I studied art history in college. That was my minor. When I became obsessed as a young lawyer with the fact that I wanted to paint and draw, and I had to quit art in order to do that, I was at the Corcoran, and I took a class from my friend and longtime mentor, William Christenberry, Bill. And I was in a class with him, and he used to have a model and sawhorses around, and these very attractive young women who were standing naked and walking around while we made gestural drawings. And they move in relation often to the sawhorses. And as I attempted to learn how to do gestural drawings, I noticed that there was an amazing dynamic, powerful energy between the sawhorse that was hard-edged and the human body, and the various parts of the human body. And I saw trying to arrange that into something that made sense was the first time I really felt non-objective art. And all of a sudden, a light bulb went inside of me and in my veins and wherever. And I never could get away from that. So slowly but surely, I just went after it in terms of, and it's been like that for 35 years. So I think that that's why I can't get away from it. I don't want it. I don't want it. I think it's fantastic. It's a really great thing to be able to do.
You do it very well, so don't fight it. Don't
Thank
try to
you.
get away from it. Jeffrey?
One more time.
All right, sure. Why have you chosen abstraction to express your artistic voice?
Well, as I stated before, I've been doing abstract for a long time, and most of my work that I'm known for is not abstract. But while I'm working, I always have to work on more than one piece at a time. I can't just do one thing. And that's even with a series. I can't just work on a series. Like when I was working on this, I was still working on another series that had images of blackface and flags and things like that, and it's totally separate. But what the abstract allows me to do is that process that we're talking about, where the freedom and the process of making the painting and having it evolve into something is just this great. I mean, once it's done, it's like, wow, I actually did this. And it is an amazing feeling to create abstract paintings. There's no doubt about it. And like you had stated in the beginning about some people thinking abstract is just a bunch of squiggly lines, it's extremely specific. It's the same as a figurative painting it's usually even more than a figurative painting because it's coming totally from within, self-expression, where when we create things that people identify with, it's because it's something someone's seen before, and we're using it as an object. So we're kind of stealing that image, so to speak, when we create figurative work, as opposed to when we do these abstract paintings, it's our own. And that's one of the great feelings I get from abstract.
David?
I spoke earlier that I started out really as a figurative artist, and then that got broken down into spiritual content. You images from different cultures from around the world, and different ideologies, different philosophies. So I started getting into nuances, and that kind of led towards energy. So as I keep evolving and keep breaking things down, the paintings change. I practice two forms of contemplation. One is Tai Chi Chuan, and the other is Zen Buddhist or Zen meditation, which is where you just really slow everything down. And there's different kinds of meditation, but the one, the Tai Chi, is really an internal martial art. And so when you look at the paintings, you see a lot of round movements. And people think that, it comes out of something. No, it's really coming from inside me. I don't really think about, what is this doing? But I look at the circles and different things that have different meanings and different places on the composition. So the abstraction, and I like what everybody's saying, if you look at figurative artists, they're very abstract. If you look at a drawing and people think that it's reality, it's not. It's a drawing. It's graphite. There's nothing real about it, And so with the abstraction, it's a matter of just taking the elements, which everybody's talking about, and dealing with it very specifically. There's been a number of artists that have always influenced me. And when I really started getting into abstraction, it was more the moderns. The constructivist Elsa Gebreyesus, Paul Klee. I love Moreau just because of the surrealist places that he was going. Sonia Delaunay, and people look at my work and they'll go, yeah, this is like Delaunay, And I'm kind of like, really, Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's exactly right. Even though they're very different from what she was doing, and probably very different from her ideas, but she was dealing with the energy of the transition into modern times. And that was the way that she could deal with these things. You look at the uncomfortability of Eldozitsky and these Browning paintings that he was doing about action about ready to happen. And there's a very kind of jittery quality in his work, and yet it's very substantial. So there's beautiful things. We live in scary times. You know, if you ever sit down and pay attention, like, what the hell is going on? And in my painting, I really try to grab hold of that a little bit, you know, and sense that. You know, there's an old Chinese saying, you know, to be uncertain is to be uncomfortable. To be certain is to be a fool. And I'm very uncertain and very uncomfortable lots of times. But you know, then you know, as the painting's finished, you know, I'll find titles. You know, naughty elephant. How does that happen? You know, holding smoke. You know, I told a friend of mine, she was looking at a painting. I go, yeah, the title of that one's holding smoke. She thought I was referencing pot. It's like, no. Holding smoke. It's like holding the illusion. You're always trying to hold on to something, and it's impossible. So I love to give the titles to the work